So last week we touched on the Diane Abbott situation, and we played some videos from Parliament. We showed can't remember the guy's name now. The Tory donor said something racist about her, and no one's really been backing her. They didn't let her speak in Parliament, and I didn't really get to show what she's saying. I don't know if that video directly will have what she's saying in it, but this video is actually on Channel 4. It says Hackney backs Diane Abbott after alleged racist comments by Tory donor. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. What you think of Diane Abbott? What you think of this racism scandal?
I mean, considering it is a wet, windy and cold Friday night here. in East London, hundreds have gathered to show solidarity with Britain's longest-serving black parliamentarian, Diane Abbott. Now, just minutes ago, she arrived to a hero's welcome and a huge cheer, and we understand that she will be speaking shortly. Now, this is the first time she will be seen in public and speaking in public since those comments emerged from the Conservative super donor saying that he believed that she should be shot and that she makes him hate all black women. Now, although there is anger here towards the Conservative Party's lack of action, there is also considerable anger towards the Labour Party. And many here are calling for the Labour whip to be returned to Diane Abbott following an article she wrote last year that led to her being removed from the Parliamentary Labour Party. Now, for those gathered, Diane Abbott is a pioneer and also a proxy for all black women in public life, and they believe she's been treated unfairly and that the Labour complaint system is unfair. This protest also reflects a wider disillusionment with that party. Now, before Diane arrived, we understand she had reservations over security. Now, considering she's been an MP in this borough longer than I have been alive, that is a sorry state of affairs. The question is, just how did we get here? Watch our piece.
And we'll get to this. I'm not even... Okay, so this is going to be a good media piece of her history and stuff as well. So that's interesting, though. You know what I'm saying? That she's concerned about her safety in her borough, right? And I'm not surprised, because the madness I get in my comments when I call that racism, and I've noticed certain things that are leaning towards threats towards me, or just in general. It's like, you know, at some point you guys are going to learn, and then coming with a threatening kind of nature. We're in mad times when it comes to these racists, and that's why they got to be challenged and stopped.
Diane Abbott becomes Britain's first black woman MP.
For almost 40 years, Diane Abbott has been one of the country's most recognisable politicians, first elected in a decade of dissent. The MP fought fiercely against apartheid.
Apartheid, right? I'll tell you what's apartheid.
And when Tony Blair's Labour invaded Iraq, she opposed the party's line. A darling of the left, seemingly detested by the right on both sides of the House. For years, the first black female MP has been the country's most abused politician.
The amount of abuse you get is vastly more than when I first became an MP. Now you just press a button and you can send paragraphs and paragraphs of abuse.
But few words had been as ferocious as those from the Conservative Party's largest donor, Frank Hester. Hester had said, "You just want to hate all black women because she's there. And I don't hate all black women at all, but I think she should be shot."
Let me just pause that. That's the first time I actually seen the quote in order and in context. It was read as, "You make me want to hate all black women," before, which is exactly what it's saying, but I'm now seeing it all as one thing. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Chilling words, especially for a generation of young black women with political ambition.
I'm a local councillor at the moment, but as it stands, if politics does not change, being a member of parliament does not interest me.
It was like quite upsetting, but then even more upsetting that he was inciting violence on a black woman and there's not been any repercussions for it.
For these young women, Diane Abbott is a pioneer and their proxy for the treatment of all black women in public life. But they are not just concerned about the Conservative Party's lack of action. In 2020, revealed WhatsApp messages made by Labour staffers said Diane Abbott literally makes me sick, truly repulsive, very angry woman. The Labour operatives denied the comments were racist, but the Ford inquiry into the leaks said they were reflective of racist tropes, and the party was in effect operating a hierarchy of racism. Yet last year, Diane Abbott herself had the Labour whip removed in response to an article she wrote about white, Jewish, Irish and traveller communities. She said,
and this is the facts, right? We talk about cancel culture all the time. The right cry and cry about cancel culture. They claim you can't say anything about certain groups, yeah? And they actually play victim as white people. Like, oh, you can't say nothing about black people. You can't say nothing about Muslims. And look at this. Look at the facts. Yeah, this guy is able to say what he said about Diane Abbott, yeah? Completely racist and misogynist. And nothing happens. But she said something which isn't even anywhere close to what he said. She said something that was a bad thing to say and a mistake, but it wasn't in context with what she, the way what she was punished for wasn't really in context with the message she was trying to get across, and that's been clarified. She's apologized, she's clarified what the message is she was trying to say, and there's truth in it, yeah? There's 100% truth in it. So she's being punished, cancelled, like fully, like in her job, having a whip taken, but this other guy can say something way more horrific and it's fine.
And it's true that many types of white people with points of difference, such as redheads, can experience prejudice, but they are not all their lives subject to racism. The MP apologised, but Sir Keir Starmer
that part was
did
just
not
a
allow
fact.
Diane Abbott to return. In contrast, Neil Coyle, who had been suspended from Parliament for harassment and using abusive language with racial overtones, has been allowed to serve again as a Labour MP.
Why has Diane Abbott not had the whip restored when she has made an apology? There are inconsistencies with how these things are dealt with, and what I want to see is racism being tackled seriously across the party, regardless of faction and regardless of which kind of racism it is.
What do you make of the relationship between, I guess, the black electorate and the main political parties?
I feel quite conflicted, if I'm being quite honest. With the general elections coming up, I don't know who I feel can serve me as a black person, and I feel that although the Tory party is, like, they're not the best in terms of dealing with race, I feel like Labour haven't made it any better.
Labour have said the investigation process for Diane Abbott must be independent, but for black voters who see Diane Abbott as a pioneer, her alienation from the party has added to their discontent.
Simeon Brown will join me to discuss all of this is Professor Nicola Rollock, author of The Racial Code, and Martin Ford KC, who's Sir Keir Starmer commissioned to investigate allegations of racism, sexism and bullying in the Labour Party. Thanks to both of you for coming in. I mean, this really quickly became a political story, but first and foremost, it's a sort of personal story. Racist and threatening comments against a black woman, which must resonate, as we heard in the piece, from so many women up and down the country. I just wondered what you thought when you heard them first.
Yes, evening, Jackie. The comments are absolutely abhorrent. I personally wasn't shocked, but if you look on social media, if I talk to my friends, colleagues, they're upset, distressed. But also, let's be clear here. This isn't just about what Frank Hester is alleged to have said. It's also about the failings of our government to respond adequately to them.
Well, on exactly that point, I mean, for 24 hours, it was up for debate. Are these even racist comments? And I just wonder what, as you watch that play out,
so how is that even up for debate? Like, that's crazy. how are we even conversing? This is why, like, I get it in the neck in these comments, right? When I'm calling this and that racist stuff on Paul Forbes' page, whatever, which isn't even as overt as this, yeah? But I'm just not stupid. I see something racist, I call it racist. It's very simple. This is like, there is no room for conversation about this. How they're spending 24 hours talking about it just shows you that the government is racist. Both parties, all the main people involved are racist people who want to cover up racism. And like I said in the last one, let the guy keep the money, because they're talking about should they give the Tory donor the money back? No, because you're racist as well. Let's stop pretending.
Well, I think many things about it, but first and foremost, what was deeply concerning is that the government's initial response was that the comments were unacceptable. And that really, in my mind, speaks to a form of institutional gaslighting around the matter. And when they subsequently did comment, they said that they were racist and they were wrong. Well, actually, there were more than that. They were racist, misogynistic, and indeed they incited violence against women, and in this case, against a black woman. They didn't go far enough, and they haven't gone far enough in their response.
I would agree. I've had a lot of contact with professional black women up and down the country, found this amazingly triggering. It was blatant racism. There's no hiding from it. It wasn't just wrong, it was offensive. You can't say it's rude. The man has apologised for rudeness. He's not apologised for his racism. And I think the thing that I found really surprising, people coming on the radio and television saying this was a private meeting. My experience, 4 decades of working in a predominantly white profession, is it's when people think they're among like-minded people and friends, they tell the truth about his failings, about their true feelings, and therefore I would say this man is a racist until proven otherwise.
And of course he denies that. The government, the ministers were coming out saying, as you say, they were unacceptable, they were wrong, but they weren't racist. Then later on, yes, they are racist. That playing out, that discussion in government, what is going on there? In terms of, you know, this is the line we'll go with, or do you think that's what...
Well, I think, unfortunately, so much of the news agenda is set by, you know, people who work in comms, and it's damage limitation, or it's appealing to a particular constituency. There's clearly a feeling in the House of Commons that being supportive of those of us from migrant heritage in some way will lose them votes. That's what I can think, because they never come out and stand up and be counted. They never say migrants are net contributors to the economy, they're a good thing, we need them. It's incredibly negative. And it makes us all feel that we don't belong and never will.
And I would actually, no, I'd say it's worse than that, actually, if I may, in that what we've seen constantly from this government, and that's certainly the Labour Party are not let off the hook here, what we've seen constantly from this government is a reneging of racism, that it doesn't exist. And indeed, to make example of that, they say, well, we've got the first Prime Minister of South Asian heritage. Look at our cabinet. But actually, if we're thinking about racism, it's much more complex than that. I think we have to have a more mature debate around racism and also what it looks like. Having an ethnically diverse cabinet is not a sufficient marker of the fact that we don't have racism in our society.
And exactly on the point that Labour aren't off the hook on this. I mean, Labour came out and expressed their revulsion. They were very quick to say that they were supportive of Diane Abbott against these terrible racist comments. But what were you thinking, given your history as the man who conducted an inquiry into racism in Labour? What were you thinking as that played out?
Well, I was thinking that I'm afraid there was an air of hypocrisy as far as I was concerned. My findings, and we had 1,100 submissions, and I know they're a self-selecting group, there's a real feeling among the non-white Labour Party activists, councillors, and even the Parliamentary Labour Party, that the party was not coping properly and dealing fairly with anti-black racism. And there's a real feeling among the black caucus of MPs who contact me regularly that they are treated more harshly in terms of investigations and sanctions than their white counterparts. So you've mentioned the gentleman who was being readmitted. There was another one, I think, yesterday morning, the day after professing supposed support for Diane. And big government just doesn't work for black people in this country on this issue.
Now, it's interesting you raise that. In this moment, we're in an election year when, without doubt, both parties, all parties, will be looking for the black vote. Where does that leave black people after what we've seen this last couple of weeks?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily after. I think it's just exacerbated, frankly, in that you might choose Conservative, but actually they've got a really poor track record of dealing with the racism, as has been exemplified this week. But also it's the case for Labour, who were slow to respond and handled the Diane Abbott situation quite abysmally. So I think that many of us feel, and speaking in very broad terms, many of us feel that we have nowhere to turn politically.
Martin,
I mean, we called in the report for a transparent, fair, consistent disciplinary system. And I talked about a perception of a hierarchy of racism. These sorts of events make, I think, black voters and black politicians think that if I make an apology for rudeness a major political party, when it's blatant racism, can allow me back into the fold. If I make an apology and I'm Diane Abbott, I wait 11 months for the whip to be restored. If I'm Kate Ossamore, I'm still... There's nothing to investigate. They said what they said, they apologised.
Just very briefly, I mean, do you think it is time for her to have the whip
absolutely.
restored?
It's been time. I think I came on April, this story blew up, and I said, I hope the investigation is swift. And this should have taken...
Going to have to end it there, and we're just hearing that Diane Abbott has stood up to speak in Hackney, so we are seeing the live shot now.
Right.
So she's obviously trying to speak, but huge amounts of support there for her in her constituency.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the Hackney people that organised this event, because you don't become Britain's first black woman MP just like that. It is Hackney people that selected me in the 80s. It is Hackney people that worked to get me elected in the 80s. And it is Hackney people that have stood by me year after year, decade after decade. This is not about me. This is about the level of racism that is...
Diane Abbott there in Hackney struggling to be heard among the huge amounts of support that has turned out for her tonight in her constituency of Hackney. We hope to hear from more.
I want to try and no, we're not gonna let them cut it off there. We're gonna try and find the rest of that. Yeah, I'm gonna have a little search, see if there's a longer video of that, man, because I think that's the main thing. Like last week, we didn't get to hearing what she has to say, and that's the most important thing. When I'm searching it now, it's come up with the same article. Oh, come on, man. Someone must have uploaded the raw speech. I guess they might not have, because it's probably that news camera that was actually down there. And one second. Yeah, I can't see nothing on YouTube. But I think what I'm gonna do. Let's pull up her Twitter. Just see if she's got anything else going on over here. So I'm gonna just put this on. I need to put this on the screen. I'm like trying to find something before I pull it up, but otherwise it's a bit nothing to look at. This is about her case, obviously about the investigation against her, which, as it shows in the video we just watched, you know, it's quite telling how differently she's being treated. Spontaneous standing ovation in solidarity with Diane Abbott in Perth. She's been mentioned by name. Don't think I've ever seen this for a political opponent before. Okay, wow, by an opponent, right? And look at all these people. I wanted to stay, so I didn't want to interrupt and pull up the video in her speech, but, you know, it's always the MPs that actually have the most support that they love to mistreat. Yeah, obviously we're addressing a specific issue of racism here, but we can also see that she has support in her community in a way that none of these MPs who are disrespecting her do. They can't go out and give a speech in the street and have anybody come out for them. Nobody comes out. Boris Johnson can't even do that. Nobody cares about them. Do you know what I'm saying? Thousands marching together against racism. loads of hashtags, we stand with Diane. Showing support by large crowds rally in East London. Gosh, interesting stuff here. I should be reading this stuff out, but I guess you guys can read some of it on the screen. Look, another example of the media and political class creating a narrative designed to send abuse Diane Abbott's way. They'll later wring their hands and say, isn't it awful having investigated in the first place? And that's a great point. Like the way they write about her in the media, it's like they're intentionally trying to create abuse towards her. They want that abuse to get sent her way. And then, yeah, and Islington support a rally for me this evening. Jeremy Corbyn again. Right, man. Big up Diane Abbott. Suck your mum to all these racists, yeah, and all the racists I'll get in the comment on this video. Like, comment, subscribe, put your racist comments. Your racist comments and your views still get monetized the same as the others, so go for it.